Most of life feels like a game we're forced to play, rules we didn't choose, goals we didn't question. We spend our days trying to win, yet still feel strangely incomplete. What if true intelligence is not about winning the game, but understanding how it works? Reality is a game of roles. From the moment you were born, you were given a part to play, a name, a language, a culture, a set of expectations. Slowly, almost invisibly, you learned how to be a someone, a student, a worker, a success, a failure, a good person, a bad one. And before you ever had the chance to ask, is this really me? You were already acting the role perfectly. This is the first secret of the game of reality. Life is not asking you to discover who you are. It is teaching you how to perform who you think you are. And that performance is not wrong. Roles are necessary. Just as an actor must wear a costume to appear on stage, you must wear identities to function in society. But the trouble begins when the actor forgets he is acting, when the mask becomes the face, when the role feels permanent. You say, I am this job. You say, I am this personality. You say, I am my past, my mistakes, my story. But these are descriptions, not definitions. Alan Watts often pointed out that the universe is playful by nature. It hides from itself in order to rediscover itself. In the same way, you are not a fixed object moving through a rigid world. You are an event, something that is happening, not something that is. Think about it. When you play a game, you know it's a game. You take the rules seriously, but not too seriously. You don't panic when you lose a point. You don't confuse the scoreboard with your worth. Yet in life, we forget this. We cling to roles as if they were survival itself. The moment you realize this is a role I'm playing, something remarkable happens. You gain space, space to breathe, space to respond instead of react, space to choose how deeply you want to be involved. This doesn't mean you abandon responsibility or stop caring. It means you stop being imprisoned by the part you play. You still show up, but with lightness, with humor, with awareness. A person who knows they are playing a role can play it beautifully. A person who thinks the role is their identity suffers endlessly trying to defend it. So being smarter than the game is not about rejecting society or escaping life. It is about remembering that behind every label you carry, there is something watching the whole performance unfold, something vast, curious, and free. And once you see that, you don't have to quit the game. You simply stop being fooled by it. I'm curious, what role do you feel most trapped in right now? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes awareness begins the moment we name the mask. The ego is a useful illusion. One of the strangest things about being human is the feeling that you are a separate someone looking out at a world that is out there. It feels obvious, natural, unquestionable. You wake up in the morning and instantly the sense appears, this is me and that is everything else. But what if this feeling, so convincing, so persistent, is not the truth, but a tool? The ego is not your enemy. It is a practical invention. It gives you a name, a history, and a sense of continuity. It helps you sign documents, plan for tomorrow, and avoid walking into traffic. In that sense, the ego is extremely useful. But the trouble begins when we mistake usefulness for reality. The ego says, I am inside this body. The world says, you are part of a much larger process. Imagine drawing a circle in the ocean and calling the water inside me, and everything outside not me. The line may help you point, but it doesn't actually divide the water. In the same way, the ego draws an imaginary boundary around experience and calls it self. It feels real, but it's a conceptual line, not a physical one. Because of this illusion, we begin to live in a constant state of tension. We feel we must protect ourselves from life, compete with others, and control outcomes to survive. Fear becomes normal. Anxiety becomes reasonable. And we call this condition being realistic. Yet when you look closely, you cannot find the ego as a solid thing. You find thoughts, memories, sensations, but no central controller. The self is more like a story being told than an object that exists. And like all stories, it changes depending on who is listening. This realization is not meant to destroy the ego, because that would be like smashing a hammer because you forgot it's a tool. Instead, intelligence lies in knowing when to use it and when to put it down. When the ego relaxes, something extraordinary happens. You stop defending every opinion. You stop measuring your worth against others. You stop living as if life is a battlefield. Action becomes simpler. Relationships become softer. Even pain becomes more workable because it no longer threatens a fragile identity. Alan Watts often reminded us that you don't get rid of the ego by attacking it. You transcend it by seeing through it. The illusion loses its grip the moment it is recognized as an illusion. You still have a name, you still have a personality, but now you wear them like clothes instead of armor. And in that moment, life no longer feels like something happening to you. It feels like something happening as you. Have you ever noticed moments when your sense of self disappeared? Maybe during music, deep focus, or silence? Share your experience in the comments. Your insight might help someone else see beyond the illusion. Trying too hard is the trap. There is a quiet paradox at the heart of human life. The more desperately we try to be happy, the more tense and dissatisfied we become. We chase success, peace, love, and meaning with clenched fists, believing that effort alone will finally deliver us to fulfillment. Yet somehow, just as we think we're close, life slips through our grasp. This is because effort has a limit. Beyond that limit, trying becomes resistance. Imagine trying to fall asleep by force. The harder you attempt it, the more awake you feel. Or consider trying to relax while telling yourself, I must relax right now. The command itself creates tension. Happiness, peace, and clarity work in the same way. They are states that emerge, not trophies that can be seized. The game of reality is clever. It rewards attention, not desperation. When you pursue life as a conquest, it responds with struggle. But when you approach it as a conversation, it opens. Alan Watts often compared life to music or dance. You don't rush to the end of a song just to get it over with. You don't dance in order to arrive at a specific spot on the floor. The joy is in the movement itself. Yet we live as if the purpose of life is somewhere else. Always later, always just beyond reach. Trying too hard is the ego's final strategy to maintain control. It says, if I just do more, push harder, think faster, I will finally be safe. But life cannot be bullied into cooperation. It responds to sensitivity, timing, and trust. This does not mean you stop acting or abandon ambition. It means you learn the difference between effort and strain. Effort flows. Strain resists. Effort feels engaged and alive. Strain feels tight and anxious. When action arises naturally from understanding, it is effective. When it arises from fear, it exhausts you. Think of water flowing down a mountain. It does not strain, yet nothing stops it. It moves with intelligence, adjusting to every obstacle, finding the path of least resistance. In this sense, water is wiser than foe. And so are you, when you stop pushing against the moment. When you let go of excessive trying, clarity appears. You respond instead of react. You move when it's time to move, and rest when it's time to rest. Life stops feeling like a test you're failing and starts feeling like a rhythm you can feel. Being smarter than the game of reality means knowing when to act and when to stop interfering. Sometimes the greatest progress comes not from doing more, but from letting life do what it already knows how to do. Where in your life do you feel like you're trying too hard right now? Share your thoughts in the comments. Awareness of the strain is often the first step toward letting go. Control is mostly an idea. One of the most comforting beliefs we carry is the idea that we are in control. It gives us a sense of safety, a feeling that if we plan carefully enough, think intelligently enough, and act decisively enough, life will behave as expected. And when things go wrong, we assume we simply didn't control hard enough. But pause for a moment and look closely. How much of your life is actually under your command? You did not choose the time you were born, the body you inhabit, or the world you entered. Your thoughts appear before you decide to think them. Your heart beats without instruction. Your breath flows even when you forget about it. Control, it turns out, is not the foundation of life. It is a commentary placed on top of it. The mind likes to imagine a small captain inside the head, pulling levers and steering the ship. Yet when you search for this captain, you only find processes happening on their own. Decisions arise, actions follow, and only afterward does the mind say, "I did that." This does not mean you are powerless. It means power is not centralized. Life is not run by a single controller. It is a cooperation of countless forces moving together. Weather, biology, culture, chance, and timing all play their part. You are one of those forces, not the manager of the whole operation. The suffering begins when we demand certainty from an uncertain universe. We say, "This should not have happened. I should be in control of this." And in doing so, we turn natural unpredictability into personal failure. Alan Watts often reminded us that trying to control life is like trying to smooth waves with a flat iron. The ocean is not meant to be still. Its movement is not a flaw, it is its nature. In the same way, unpredictability is not a problem to be solved. It is the essence of living. When you loosen your grip on control, something unexpected occurs. Intelligence increases. You become more responsive, more flexible, more aware of what is actually happening rather than what should be happening. You stop fighting reality and start working with it. This is the difference between rigidity and wisdom. A rigid person insists on outcomes. A wise person pays attention to conditions. One breaks under pressure. The other adapts. Letting go of control does not mean becoming passive or careless. It means trusting the larger process while participating fully in it. You still plan, decide, and act, but without the illusion that you can guarantee results. You do your part and allow the rest to unfold. And in that surrender, anxiety softens. Not because life becomes predictable, but because you no longer require it to be. Being smarter than the game of reality means understanding that control is a convenience, not a truth. And freedom begins when you stop trying to hold the world still. What is something in your life you're trying to control right now that may not need your grip? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes release begins with recognition. Problems are part of the dance. We tend to think of life as something that should eventually stop giving us problems, as if one day, after enough effort, learning, and self-improvement, we will finally reach a smooth, uninterrupted state of peace. And when problems appear, as they always do, we assume something has gone wrong. But what if problems are not interruptions to life? What if they are life? From the moment we learn to think, we divide the world into two categories: what we want and what we don't want, pleasure and pain, success and failure. And from this division, problems are born. A problem is simply the distance between reality as it is and reality as we think it should be. Nature itself does not seem bothered by this. Rivers do not complain about rocks. Seasons do not argue with change. The tension between opposites is not a mistake. It is movement. It is how the dance continues. Alan Watts often pointed out that a universe without problems would be a universe without form. Just as music depends on tension and release, life depends on contrast. Without difficulty, there would be no growth. Without resistance, no direction. Without uncertainty, no discovery. Yet the mind treats problems as enemies. It asks, "How do I get rid of this forever?" But the moment one problem is solved, another quietly takes its place. Not because you failed, but because life is dynamic. Solving problems is not a phase you graduate from. It is an ongoing activity. Like breathing or walking, suffering increases when we add psychological resistance to practical difficulty. The event itself may be unavoidable, but the story we tell about it, "This shouldn't be happening to me," is optional. When we drop that story, the problem becomes workable instead of overwhelming. This shift changes everything. You stop asking, "Why does my life have problems?" and start asking, "How do I move with what's here?" The problem becomes a teacher not a punishment, a signal, not a threat. When you see problems as part of the dance, you stop demanding permanent comfort. You begin to value adaptability. You develop rhythm instead of rigidity. And slowly life feels less like a battle to be won and more like a process to be participated in. Being smarter than the game of reality does not mean escaping difficulty. It means understanding its role. You don't eliminate the dance by removing the steps. You learn how to move with them. And in that movement, something surprising happens. Even in the middle of challenge, there is aliveness, meaning, and a quiet kind of joy. What problem in your life might look different if you saw it as part of the dance rather than an obstacle? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your reflection might inspire someone else to move differently. The present moment is the only reality. We spend much of our lives somewhere we are not. Our minds wander into the past, replaying memories and mistakes, or leap into the future, worrying about outcomes that may never come. And all the while, the present slips by unnoticed, like sand through our fingers. Yet the present moment is the only place where life actually occurs. The past is gone. No matter how vividly you remember it, it exists only in memory, colored by interpretation. The future is not yet real. Plans, fears, and hopes are projections, delicate shadows that may never materialize. But right now, this breath, this heartbeat, this awareness, this is undeniably alive. Alan Watts often described life as a river, flowing continuously, never pausing. You cannot step twice into the same moment. Every experience, sensation, or thought is fleeting. To try to cling to what has passed or to control what has not yet arrived is to resist the river itself. And resistance, he suggested, is the root of much suffering. Being smarter than the game of reality means learning to fully inhabit the present without judgment or distraction. It is not about ignoring the past or abandoning the future. It is about engaging with what is happening now, the one place where your actions have effect and your consciousness is awake. When you live in the present, ordinary things reveal extraordinary depth. The sound of a bird, the texture of a leaf, the rhythm of your own breath, these are no longer mundane. They are vibrant reminders that life is unfolding moment by moment. Clarity emerges naturally when you stop chasing what is already slipping away. The mind wants to measure time, set goals, and anticipate results. But real intelligence comes when you recognize that the present moment is the only reality in which those calculations can have meaning. Plans work only when grounded in now. Actions matter only when rooted in awareness. This does not mean passivity. On the contrary, presence brings responsiveness. When you are fully here, you can see what needs attention, what requires action, and what can be released. You respond rather than react. You participate in the flow of life rather than trying to dominate it. The paradox is simple yet profound. The more you embrace the present, the more control you have over your experience. Not because you can predict or command the future, but because you are fully engaged with what is real. Awareness itself becomes a kind of freedom, a clarity that the past and future can never provide. Being smarter than the game of reality is not about knowing everything or winning the world. It is about realizing that the only world that truly exists is this one, happening right now. Take a moment to notice the present around you. What do you see, hear, or feel right now? Share your experience in the comments. Your awareness might help someone else pause and recognize the life happening in their own moment. You are not separate from the world, from the early. Sustained moments of life, we are taught to see ourselves as distinct, separate beings. You are in your body, you are in your mind, and everything else, the trees, the sky, other people, is out there. This separation feels natural, almost obvious. Yet, the more deeply you observe, the more it becomes clear that this division is a story we tell ourselves. Alan Watts often reminded us that we are like waves in the ocean. Each wave seems to have its own form, its own rise and fall, its own identity. Yet the wave is never separate from the water. The ocean itself moves through it, expresses itself as it, and will eventually reclaim it. In exactly the same way, you are not a tiny island of consciousness drifting alone. You are a part of the whole universe experiencing itself. Idea is not merely poetic, it is practical. When you see yourself as separate, you act as if the world is a collection of things to conquer, control, or defend against. Anxiety, competition, and fear naturally arise. But when you sense that you are a movement of the whole, a thread in the vast web of existence, life begins to feel different. Actions flow more smoothly. Conflicts soften. Even suffering becomes easier to bear because it is no longer personal. It is part of the larger dance of life. Consider your breathing. You did not invent the air, nor does the air wait for your permission to move. Yet the rhythm of life flows in and out of you continuously. The boundaries between self and environment blur in every moment you live. You are not just in the universe. The universe is in you. Every sensation, every thought, every heartbeat is an expression of the larger process of existence. The realization of this interconnectedness does not erase individuality. It enhances it. When you see yourself as inseparable from the world, your actions gain meaning. They are no longer about defending a fragile ego, but about participating consciously in the ongoing unfolding of reality. Compassion, creativity, and curiosity naturally arise when you recognize that harm to another is harm to yourself, and joy for another is joy for yourself. Being smarter than the game of reality means moving beyond the illusion of separateness. It means understanding that the walls you build around me and not me are permeable. The universe is not outside you, and you are not outside the universe. You are a note in the symphony, a wave in the ocean, a part of something far larger than any single story or role. When you truly sense this, life becomes less about struggle and more about participation. You can still make choices, take action, and shape your world, but always with the awareness that the self is not an isolated commander. It is a lens through which the whole cosmos experiences itself. Can you think of a moment when you felt completely connected to the world around you? Share your experience in the comments, sometimes recognizing that connection is the first step toward living more freely and fully. Freedom comes from understanding, not escaping. Many people believe freedom is something you reach by escaping. Escape from responsibilities, escape from problems, escape from the rules of life. We think that if we could just leave the noise behind, the expectations, the hardships, then finally we would be free. And yet, time and again, those who try to flee discover that freedom cannot be found outside. It is not a place to reach, it is a perspective to awaken. Alan Watts often said that trying to escape life is like trying to run from your own shadow. The more you flee, the closer it seems to follow. This is because freedom is not a matter of circumstances, it is a matter of understanding. You are free when you see clearly what life is, when you recognize the patterns, the illusions, the roles, and the games being played. Understanding begins with awareness. You notice that the problems, the pressures, the chaos, they are part of the game, not the enemy. You see that the ego with its fears and desires is a tool, not your master. You perceive that control is an idea, and that resisting the present only brings tension. In this clarity, something profound happens. You realize you are not trapped, even when everything seems overwhelming. True freedom is subtle. It does not shout. It does not promise a world without difficulty. Instead, it whispers that life is not happening to you. It is happening as you. You stop resisting, stop struggling to dominate, and start participating fully. You can still make choices, take action, and shape your reality, but now from a place of insight rather than fear. When you understand the game of reality, you see that attempts to escape are unnecessary. There is nowhere to go where life is not present. The obstacles you fear are the very means by which you grow, learn, and experience. Trying to avoid them only leads to more tension, while embracing them with awareness brings liberation. Freedom also comes from accepting uncertainty. The universe is unpredictable, dynamic, and endlessly complex, Those who cling to certainty find themselves imprisoned by illusion. But those who understand and adapt are free, because they are not bound by expectations. They are flexible, alive, and fully engaged with what is real. Alan Watts often reminded us that freedom is playful. It is not a grim duty, but a lightness of being. It arises when you stop trying to force life to comply with your ideas and instead allow yourself to move with it. You are no longer a prisoner of the rules. You are a conscious participant in the flow. Being smarter than the game of reality does not mean controlling everything, escaping everything, or even mastering everything. It means seeing clearly, letting go of illusions, and acting from understanding rather than avoidance. In that clarity, freedom is not something you earn. It is something you awaken to. Where in your life are you trying to escape instead of understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes seeing the difference between running and awakening is the first step toward true freedom.